Welcome to the Deep Dive, brought to you by F1 Blogs. If you follow Formula One, you know the Austrian Grand Prix. It nearly always delivers some excitement. This week, we're diving into the F1 MSC Cruises Grand Prix of Austria 2025. It's often a weekend packed with surprises, right? And our mission today is to pull out the most important insights, maybe some surprising nuggets, just to get you completely up to speed for what looks like it could be a really intense race.
Absolutely. And we're using a pretty comprehensive analysis from the F1 Blogs YouTube channel as our guide today. It's a detailed look, and it's going to let us unpack, everything from the track's history, which is fascinating, right through to how the teams are looking heading into this one. Should give you some sharp perspectives.
Okay, let's get into it then. Officially welcome everyone to the Formula One MSC Cruises GP of Austria 2025. This isn't just another race weekend. It's actually the 38th Grand Prix held in Austria. That really says something about its legacy in F1.
It really does. And tracing the circuit's history is quite something. I mean, the current Red Bull Ring, Spielberg, that's hosted 18 races. But interestingly, another 18 were held right there, but on a different layout. The old Nürburgring configuration. And even before that, you had the Österreichring, which, believe it or not, started out life based on the Zeltweg airfield. Picture it, just a couple of straights, a hairpin, a 180-degree turn. Pretty basic compared to today.
Wow, hard to imagine now. And that evolution brings us to the modern Red Bull Ring. It's short, only 400 and 318 meters, but it's incredibly fast, which means, quick lap times and a pretty demanding 71 laps to cover the race distance, just over 306 kilometers. It really pushes them.
Oh, definitely. And it's no real surprise that Max Verstappen kind of dominates the record books here. He's got 5 poles. That puts him ahead of Bottas and Hamilton, who have 3 each, and then Häkkinen and Schumacher on 2. And wins, also 5 for Max. Again, way ahead of other multiple winners like Häkkinen, Schumacher, Rosberg, Bottas, Hamilton. It's clearly a track that works for him.
Right. Now, the fastest race lap belongs to Carlos Sainz back in 2020, a blistering 1.05.619. And last year's pole, 2024, was around 1.04. We know the cars generally get faster, but are we expecting sub-minute laps here anytime soon? Seems unlikely given those numbers.
Yeah, that's a good question. And you're right, probably not. Despite F1 cars getting quicker overall, a sub-minute lap here, it's just not really on the cards. The actual pole record is Bottas's from 2020, a 1.02.939. And funny enough, the cars have actually gotten a touch slower around this specific circuit since then, mainly due to rule changes. So the F1 Blogs computer projection, it's looking more like qualifying times in the 1.03s for 2025.
Okay, so maybe not sub-minute laps, but the Red Bull Ring, short as it is, it's famous for drama, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially in those corners. So let's zoom in a bit on where this race often gets won, or maybe more famously, lost.
For sure. Turn 1, for example, it's not really an overtaking spot, but getting it right is crucial. It sets you up for that whole uphill drag. Yeah. But then you get to turn 3. And yeah, that's where things often get, chaotic. It's the obvious place to pass, but it's also a total collision magnet. We've seen so many things there. Max and Lando clashing in 2024, that infamous Rosberg-Hamilton tangle in 2016, and Max's really fierce battle with Leclerc back in 2019. Elbows out. It's definitely a make-or-break corner.
And turn 4 is interesting, too, because it offers this kind of counter-overtaking chance, right? If you get flashed into turn 3, the DRS detection point, the line that says if you can open your rear wing flap for extra speed, is actually before turn 3. So the car that just got overtaken often gets DRS for the next straight towards turn 4. It sets up this immediate chance to repass. It's a great tactical game.
Exactly. It's a real cat and mouse situation there. And that brings us neatly onto track limits. Always a huge thing here. Turn 8, for instance. Remember Checo Perez losing that Q2 lap in 2023? Maybe unfairly. But the really infamous spots are turns 9 and 10, the final 2 corners. Remember Daniel Ricciardo doing his squid tactic through turn 10 and 21, just taking a completely different line. This place just invites drivers to push those limits. But the question is, what's been done? Well, those really aggressive curbs that caused some nasty shunts, like Kvyat's in 2016, they've been taken out. Now there are gravel traps and more, let's say, natural obstacles. It seems a more sensible way to discourage exceeding limits while being safer.
Makes sense. Now, thinking back to last year, 2024, George Russell took a really significant win. His first of that year, second overall, and actually kicked off a pretty strong run for Mercedes then. So looking at that, knowing how tough this track is on tires, what are the key strategy lessons for this year?
Well, that 2024 race also had that really dramatic last lap fight, didn't it, between Max and Lando? Ended badly for Norris, unfortunately retired. Max salvaged P5. Sainz got a podium P3, which was strong. Alonso, though, struggled a bit more, finished P18, strategy-wise.
Yeah, the thinking is still very much a two-stop race. Probably medium, medium hard. That's mainly down to the expected heat and just how brutal this circuit is on the rear tires. And what's really key here is Pirelli's decision not to bring their hardest tire, the C6 compound, this year, which is probably a good thing, honestly, given the stress on the rears. We often talk about blistering here. That's where the tire overheats and the tread literally starts to separate from the main carcass. We saw it really badly in 2018, 2019. And with high temperatures expected again, we could see similar issues. Pirelli rates this track low on traction, but high on braking, high grip, and high abrasion. It just screams tire management challenge.
Right, real headache for the teams. So with all that factored in, what are the F1 Blog's computer predictions saying for the pecking order this weekend? Okay, connecting all those dots, the F1 Blog's computer sees McLaren potentially at the front, then Ferrari, then Red Bull, and then Mercedes. But, and this is a big but, it's all heavily dependent on the weather. Always a huge factor in Austria. Last year, remember, track temps hit nearly 49 degrees Celsius during the race. Crazy hot. This year, though, the forecast looks, well, nicer. Clouds, cooler maximums, maybe 28, 29 degrees. That's not just about comfort, it massively reduces the chance of rain. So likely a more predictable weekend for tire strategy and everything else.
Okay, good to know. Let's shift focus now and look at the teams. How's everyone shaping up as they arrive in Austria? Let's start maybe near the back and work our way up.
Sure. So Alpine. Sadly, they're still last in the constructors, and the gap to Sauber has actually grown to 9 points now. There was talk about Franco Colapinto being reevaluated, though Flavio Briatore denied that. Still, the hope for Colapinto is just a clean weekend. He's shown pace. Maybe he can finally grab his first points. He's one of only 3 drivers yet to score.
And Sauber. How are things looking there?
Sauber's had a real boost recently. Nico Hülkenberg's been fantastic, 14 points in the last 2 races alone, 20 total for the team. The cars definitely improved significantly. They seem able to perform well even when things get tricky. On the other side, Gabriel Bortoleto, the rookie, hugely talented Brazilian kid, but 0 points so far. The team's preaching patience. It's a massive learning curve, obviously, and there's a big experience gap to Hülkenberg, especially in racecraft. But the talent's there, just needs time.
Okay, moving up a bit, Aston Martin. Some interesting news with Maraboya joining their academy. Growing Spanish influence there.
Yeah, that's a nice sign for their future development. And for the main team, Aston Martin. I think we're seeing a bit of a paradigm shift in their car's performance lately. Slow corners, especially under 150 kilometers, used to be their weak spot. And Austria's first sector has plenty of those. But what's really interesting is that from Imola through to Canada, very different tracks, the car's been consistently qualifying between 5th and 7th. It suggests they're really pushing to become that benchmark team in the midfield. And Adrian Newey's arrival, it's transformative. He sets incredibly high goals, pinpoints failures precisely, gets engineers collaborating better, and he's a magnet for talent. Imagine telling a top engineer you'll work with Newey. That's a huge draw. Then there's Racing Bulls. Isaac Hadjar had his scoring streak broken in Canada, unfortunately, but he's still having a standout season, which naturally leads to the question, Red Bull seats soon. What was quite remarkable was him saying recently, I think on Sky F1, that he doesn't actually feel ready for Red Bull yet. He called it a bit scary, said he needs more experience, looked at Lawson and Tsunoda's paths. That's incredibly mature, I think. Sends a clear signal to Red Bull. Hopefully avoids the problems they've sometimes had rushing drivers up too soon.
Interesting point about maturity. Now, Haas has been making gains recently, haven't they? Closing in on Williams. And Oliver Biermann, their driver, is apparently focusing hard on communication for qualifying.
Yeah, Haas are actually tied with Racing Bulls now on points, which says a lot about their recent form. Good progress. As for Williams, Austria might be a test that confirms if they are slipping back a bit, since they stopped developing the car way back after Saudi Arabia. But the big news for them is James Vowles signing a long-term extension as team principal. That's huge for their future plans, especially as they're trying to attract a big name, a catalyst of talent like Carlos Sainz to aim for podiums, maybe even more in the next few years. Vowles is definitely the guy they trust for that rebuild.
Okay, now, Red Bull. It's their home race. But things are, well, interesting. Max Verstappen is still walking a tightrope with penalty points, isn't he? Just 1 point away from a race ban. He's got 9 out of 12 until late October, although 2 points do drop off after this race in Austria, which helps a little, gives him a bit more breathing room until Mexico.
It's definitely something he has to manage. And despite getting some points back in Canada, Red Bull are still 4th in the constructors. That really underlines the car's issues this year. Max is also 3rd in the drivers, 19 points off Russell, and a pretty chunky 43 behind Piastri, honestly. I was initially quite confident Red Bull and Max could turn it around, but It's looking increasingly tough for them to give him a title-challenging car this season. Christian Horner even came out and said he expects a difficult weekend, especially in those medium-speed corners in Sector 2. And sticking with Red Bull, but looking at their junior program, Arvid Lindblad just had an F1 test at Imola, used the 2023 AlphaTauri car, ran alongside a